Hello, one and all, and welcome to another edition of Random Fandom. I'm your host, Mayhem, and this is my show where I like to get on and riff about all the things going on in the world of fandom and pop culture, and especially in the world of comic books. A while back, I did a video where I ran through all the pros and cons of DC Comics, and it's time now we set our sights on the other major comic book company and take a look at Marvel Comics, all the pros and cons, the things I like and dislike about Marvel Comics. So herein is Marvel Now's What Rules and What Drools. So we're going to start off with the good parts, the pros of all the stuff going on at Marvel Comics right now. I shouldn't say all the stuff, because there's tons of stuff going on at any comic company at any given time. So this is just the main stuff that sticks out to me as the best. I'm going to start off with a few of my favorite titles, so if you agree or haven't read them, you might want to check out a few of these titles. These are some of my favorites. I've always been a major fan of the Marvel cosmic side of things. That's everything that's going on, not on Earth, out in the universe, Silver Surfer stuff, Captain Marvel back in the day when Marvel was a Kree soldier, everything that Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning did with the Annihilation crossovers and everything, and spinning out of that, ever since then, one of my favorite titles has been Guardians of the Galaxy. I liked Guardians of the Galaxy before it was cool. I kind of used that hipster phrase that I was a fan of Guardians of the Galaxy back when nobody knew who the hell Guardians of the Galaxy was. Now, of course, everybody knows Guardians of the Galaxy because Marvel did the almost unthinkable and took this C-list property and decided to turn it into a major motion picture. So now everybody's getting more familiar with the Guardians of the Galaxy. You can imagine my elation when I found out that they were making a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Here it is, one of my favorite comics of all time, the one that almost nobody else knows about. It's getting a major motion picture turned into it. I wigged out over it. And that also meant that they started giving the comic a bigger push. Because at a certain point, they canceled the title itself after an initial 25-issue run. And then when they announced they were going to be turning it into a movie, they brought it back. They restarted Guardians of the Galaxy in a monthly title. And then they started giving it a bunch of offshoot titles. Rocket Raccoon and Groot got their own, and Star-Lord got his own, and they started just popping up in a bunch of other people's comics. So Guardians became a top-tier team all of a sudden. But ever since Guardians of the Galaxy was first done spinning out of the Annihilation saga, I'm talking about the current Guardians of the Galaxy, not the 1960s original team, but ever since the current team got first brought together, I've been a big fan of that title and that team. Similarly, another title that has long been a favorite of mine in the cosmic realm of Marvel Universe is the Nova series. Nova is one of my favorite all-time characters in terms of Richard Rider Nova, the original Nova character. Now, in recent years, he hasn't been seen for quite a while, and a new Nova has been introduced, Sam Alexander, who's a teenager. Still, pretty good series, even though I've been pining for Richard Rider, and then his eventual return, finding out what happened to him, came later on. But any way you look at it, I've always been a fan of the Nova core, the Nova character, the powers, the story of Nova going around the galaxy, righting wrongs and everything. So Nova, in any incarnation, is always one of my favorite titles as well. And here's one that seems to be pretty unknown to people who don't read comics a lot, but it's a gem of a title. It really is. It goes by different names at different times, but it's currently called Avengers Undercover. It originally started out as Avengers Arena, and then before that, it spun out of a few different titles that had different characters in them. But it started out as Avengers Arena, where a bunch of teen superheroes who didn't really have a stable place in the Marvel Universe, they didn't have a specific team, or they didn't have a specific title comic that they were in, were all kidnapped by the villain Arcade, put on this island, and it was kind of a Hunger Games situation. They were told they had to kill each other, and the last one standing would survive. And over the course of a lot of issues, they started killing each other off one by one, and eventually they tracked down Arcade and broke out of the murder world that he had put them on. And then there's a offshoot comic off of that. The continuation of those characters in that story is now Avengers Undercover, where the survivors of Arcade's murder world have been recruited by Baron Zemo and the Masters of Evil, and they've decided to accept his offer of joining the Masters of Evil, but it's just to be undercover so that they can destroy the Masters of Evil from within and try to become heroes again, because everybody in the world is looking at them badly after everything that happened on Murder World, because they had to kill each other, essentially. Some members of that book had to end up getting killed off in order for the rest to survive. So they want to redeem themselves in the eyes of the world and the other heroes in the Marvel Universe by taking down the Masters of Evil. This is a great little series in that it's very gritty in terms of these are all kids. They're all supposed to be under 18, and they've been killing each other up to now. They have several members of the original run of Avengers Arena got killed. Some really early on, some lasted pretty long, and you were hoping they would live, and they ended up getting taken out. And now you got the survivors who are wrapped up with the Masters of Evil and trying to survive in that world while taking them down from the inside. It's a great title. I highly recommend looking into the back issues of Avengers Arena if you never read that, and then moving on to what it's now, Avengers Undercover. So those are some of my favorite titles, and of course I also get some of the big ones, the Captain America, the regular Avengers title, Incredible Hulk, some of the mainstay big ones, but those are my favorite gems that not a lot of people are into or haven't always been into. Some other positive elements of Marvel now and Marvel Comics. I love how Marvel is really good about crossover events. DC just recently started doing them not long ago with Forever Evil and the Trinity War, but Marvel's been doing crossover after crossover every year for several years. They do big crossovers all the time. And currently it's Original Sin. Before that there was Avengers vs. X-Men. Before that there was Fear Itself. Some really popular ones of the past like Civil War, the Annihilation crossover that I talked about a little earlier. They do big crossover events essentially every year. And I love crossovers because it really paints a picture of the world that these characters inhabit as being contiguous, as being one whole world that all of these characters live in, and why wouldn't they interact with each other frequently? You see a single character's comic where some alien race is coming to try to destroy the entire Earth, and that one character has to go and fight them off and defeat them. Well, where are all the other superheroes in this world while this crap is going on? This invasion of Manhattan happens, but only this one or two or three characters are around to stop it. Where the hell is everybody else at the time? So anytime there's big, massive problems to attend to, it just seems natural that all the heroes would get involved in it to one degree or another. And Marvel really does that. They have big major crossovers all the time. I guess this could be problematic if it started to become tiresome after a while. It's like, every 2 weeks there's something else happening that's going to destroy the entire world. And it might seem like a bit overkill after a while, but I haven't gotten tired of it yet. I love the big crossovers. I like seeing all of the heroes of a universe interacting with each other, and not just the few heroes of that specific title. Captain America and his few characters that play into his title are the only ones we're going to be seeing because it's a Captain America book. No, bring everybody together and let them all butt heads and clash and use their strengths to help each other out in the end and all that kind of stuff. I love the big crossovers. And also when Marvel does crossovers, they do them pretty quick too. You're probably going to get one every couple of weeks, or sometimes one per week. And so they come out pretty frequently, good regularity. They tend to be pretty long, 12 or 16 issue arcs, which means they get pretty in-depth about the story rather than just trying to squeeze everything into 5 or 6 issues. So I really love the way Marvel does their crossovers. Another thing I really like about Marvel Comics, and this one is, as a longtime comic reader, I love the fact that there is one singular Marvel continuity. Marvel doesn't do reboots, is what that means. When it comes to the Marvel Universe, the Captain America from 1942 is the exact same Captain America now. Spider-Man from when he started back in the 60s and all the stuff that happened to him in the 1960s comics, that all happened to the same Spider-Man that's around today. They have a sliding time scale, which means that, 40, 50 years has passed for us in the real world, but it's only about maybe 7 to 10 years for the characters in the Marvel Universe. But I love that because I like the fact that all the old stuff I know about all these characters still applies today. So the stuff I was reading when I first got into comics decades ago, it all still applies now. Can't really say that with DC, especially with having them having recently done the New 52 reboot, and even before that they did other reboots like the pre-crisis versus post-crisis. DC has done a few different reboots where pretty much anything that happened beforehand no longer applies. Some of it might, but then some of it doesn't, and you really don't know at any given time what stuff that did happen in the old comics still holds true for the current comics. So it just becomes a bit confusing that way for DC. That's not going to be the case for Marvel. Everything that happened in any regular 616 Marvel Universe comics all throughout history holds true for the characters today. So that's the stuff I really enjoy about Marvel Comics, but there are some negative aspects of Marvel Comics as well that I'm going to talk about. So here are the things that drool about Marvel now. My number one pet peeve about Marvel Comics is how they are constantly, always and forever trying to, quote-unquote, retire their main characters. They do this through sometimes killing them off, or depowering them, or having them just decide they want to retire and pass on the mantle to somebody else. And then somebody else takes up the title of that character, it lasts for a couple of years, and then the original guy takes it back over. This happened with Captain America more than once. This has happened with Spider-Man, Thor, Hulk, Wolverine. All their main guys has done this. Captain America has been depowered probably 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years or so. He was killed at the end of Civil War, supposedly, but he was actually just bounced around in time, and James Buchanan Barnes, Bucky, took over as Captain America for a couple of years. Then when Steve Rogers came back from the past, he called himself Super Soldier for a while, and the first thing that happened, his first mission out, once he came back to present day, he got depowered and turned back into a scrawny teenager. Eventually, he got his powers back from that, and now he's back to being Captain America, and just recently, just a couple of weeks ago, he got depowered in a fight against a villain called the Iron Nail, and now he's got no super soldier formula in him anymore. He aged to a decrepit old man, and now he's going to be passing on the mantle of Captain America to Falcon. So we're going to have Falcon will be the new Captain America. How long is this going to last? A year, maybe 2, and then Steve Rogers will get repowered somehow and take back over as Captain America? Do we really have to go through this rigmarole every couple of years, getting rid of the main character and passing it off to somebody else, only for the original guy to come back a couple years later? This happened with Spider-Man. They quote-unquote killed Peter Parker a couple of years ago, and Dr. Octopus took over, got his brain, projected it into Peter Parker's body, and took over as Spider-Man. Now they changed that back, and now Peter Parker is back again. Thor, they're getting ready, as I record this, they're getting ready to turn Thor into a woman. Not turn him into a woman, but give over the title of Thor and his hammer to a female character. And so Thor will still be around, but we'll have this new female Thor. Well, for however long that lasts, before she decides to change her name to something else and gives the hammer back to the real Thor. We can pretty well guarantee that's going to happen. Wolverine, again, as I record this, they're getting ready to kill off Wolverine. And we're coming to the conclusion of his 3 months to die story arc where his healing factor has been taken away and he's apparently about to die. Well, he's died before. There was a couple years ago a storyline where he died and went to hell, and he came back to life from that. They've taken his healing factor away a few different times, and he's lost it again. He's about to die. Well, how long before they bring him back to life? Healing factor and all. It's gonna happen. The Hulk has been separated. Bruce Banner and Hulk have been separated before. And there was a period when Hulk's son, Scar, came to Earth wanting to fight the Hulk, but when he got here, Bruce Banner had been separated from the Hulk, so there was no more Hulk, it was just Bruce Banner. And eventually he got repowered again, became the Hulk again. So they just continually try to, quote-unquote, retire their main characters and pass on the mantle to another character. And that annoys the crap out of me. Just keep the main characters in place. You know, it may seem like you're trying to shake things up by either killing them off or depowering them and passing on the title to somebody else, but it's not going to last. We all know it's not going to last. We all know that 5 years from now, Steve Rogers is going to be back, wielding the shield and being Captain America. 50 years from now, if comics are still going, cross my fingers, knock on wood, Steve Rogers will still be Captain America, and Peter Parker will still be Spider-Man, and Bruce Banner will still be the Hulk. These characters are not going anywhere, so stop trying to send them off into the sunset, and stop trying to just use the convenient plot device of, well, we're going to retire them, so buy the next issue to find out who the next one's going to be, even though they're only going to be that hero for a year or so before we give it back to the original guy. Just stop doing it. Just stop doing it. So, as you can tell, that is my major pet peeve about Marvel Comics. Another one that has just been bothering me lately is how Marvel constantly restarts their numbering scheme when it comes to the issues of their titles. Now, I said before that they don't do reboots. And they don't. Marvel doesn't do full reboots of characters or the universe. But what they do is they sort of restart titles as a new jumping on point for new readers. So it's the same characters, same continuity, but they're changing things up a little bit. Either they're changing where they live, or the character changes their outlook on life, or something like that, and they restart the numbering scheme. So, for instance, currently, one of the titles I get is Fantastic Four, and the current issue is Fantastic Four number 4. Number 4. Fantastic Four is one of the original Marvel titles. It's been going since the 60s, and right now they're up to number 4, because they restarted the numbering scheme again about a couple months ago, and now they're only up to number 4. And it's Captain America is in the 20s right now. Captain America's been around since the 40s. And the number on the issue is in the 20s right now because they restarted it. Well, now that they're giving the mantle of Captain America to the Falcon, are they going to restart the numbering again? Is it going to go back to number 1? And this is just a irritant because as a comic collector, it often makes it hard to figure out my numbering when I'm looking through my boxes of comics and I'm trying to put them all in the right order. It's like, well, here I've got a 22 and here's a 23. They seem like they should go one after another. Well, wait, no, this one is from volume 5 and this one is for volume 4. And it just gets very, very confusing. I wish they just stick to a solid one numbering scheme. I don't want to have Fantastic Four number 4. I want it to say Fantastic Four number 504, because there are over 500 issues total. So that's just a pet peeve as me, as a longtime comic collector, makes it irritating when I'm trying to arrange my comic boxes. So those are my big pet peeves against the Marvel Universe. But mostly, I hold it in very high esteem, like I do with DC Universe. I wouldn't be a massive comic fan and a massive comic collector if I didn't love both of these universes and both of these companies. But some pet peeves associated with each one of them as well. So that is my wrap-up of what rules and what drools in the Marvel Now comic line. Thanks for watching. Message me down below. Let me know if you agree with my favorite titles, the things I like about Marvel, the things I dislike about Marvel. What are your pet peeves and favorite things about Marvel as a company? And anything else you want to talk about when it comes to comics. We'll see you next time on the next edition of Random Fandom.